The chamber was designed to inspire obedience. A vaulted ring of dark alloy curved overhead, its surface etched with the sigils of civilizations that had risen, submitted, or vanished beneath the authority of the Galactic Concord. At the far end, suspended within a cradle of light, a massive projection of Earth rotated slowly, blue oceans shimmering, continents veiled in cloud. It was not placed there as decoration. It was a reminder. A species newly admitted. A variable not yet solved. High Arbiter Threxiel sat upon the central dais, his elongated fingers resting against the carved armrests of his seat. Gold filaments woven into his dark robes caught the ambient light, giving him an almost regal outline. Around him, council members formed a semicircle, each elevated on their own platform, each bearing the insignia of their people. No human presence disturbed the symmetry. They were warned, Threxiel said, his voice measured, resonant. Expansion without coordination destabilizes established regions. The Concord enforces equilibrium. A murmur passed through the chamber, not agreement, but unease. A tall figure leaned forward from one of the outer platforms. Ambassador Velis of the Ketheri, his translucent skin shifting faintly with each breath, regarded the projection of Earth with a hesitation he did not attempt to conceal. Equilibrium does not justify annihilation, Velis said. The colony was civilian, agricultural. They possessed no defensive grid, no armament. They possess potential, Threxiel replied without looking at him. And potential becomes threat when unchecked. 3 million lives, Velis pressed. Erased in a single orbital pass. That is not regulation. That is provocation. Silence settled, heavy and deliberate. Threxiel's gaze finally shifted, settling on the ambassador with a calm that bordered on contempt. You assume they will respond. They will, Velis said. They are new, Threxiel countered. Emotionally volatile. They will rage, perhaps posture. But they lack cohesion. They will fracture before they retaliate. A faint shift occurred at the far end of the chamber. Slow, deliberate. The oldest among them had not yet spoken. Elder Kareth rose. Age had stripped him of speed but not presence. His tall, slender form carried the quiet weight of centuries, his deep-set eyes reflecting neither fear nor urgency. When he spoke, the chamber listened, not out of obligation, but because experience had taught them to. You misunderstand them, Kareth said. Threxiel's expression did not change. Then enlighten us, Elder. Kareth turned his gaze to the rotating Earth. Humans are not like the others you have subdued. They do not forget defeat. They catalog it. Study it. Preserve it. Velis inclined his head slightly, as if in agreement. Others shifted, uneasy but attentive. They do not retaliate as we do, Kareth continued. They do not lash out in anger. They do not seek immediate satisfaction. Then they are weak, Threxiel said. No, Kareth replied. They are patient. The word lingered unwelcome. Karetha's gaze moved across the chamber, meeting each council member in turn. You interpret silence as fear. You interpret restraint as incapacity. You are mistaken. Your caution borders on admiration, Threxiel said, a faint edge entering his tone. It is not admiration, Kareth answered. It is observation. A ripple of discomfort passed through the assembly. Explain, then, Threxiel said. If they do not respond with force, what do you propose they will do? Karetha's voice remained steady. They will learn. The projection of Earth rotated slowly behind him, its light casting pale reflections across the chamber walls. They will analyze the attack, he continued. They will trace its origin. They will examine the method, the signature, the timing. They will build a pattern. They will identify every participant. And then? Threxiel asked. Kareth did not hesitate. They will wait. Velis exhaled softly. For what? For certainty, Kareth said. Humans do not act on suspicion. They act on proof. Threxiel leaned back slightly, fingers steepled. You describe hesitation. I describe calculation, Kareth replied. The chamber fell silent again. At length, Threxiel gestured, and the projection shifted. Data overlays replaced the serene image of Earth, fleet positions, trade routes, territorial expansions. Human influence spread outward like a growing web. Expansion curves exceed predicted models, Threxiel said. Within 2 cycles, they will control 3 key transit corridors. Within 5, they will rival established powers. Then engage diplomatically, Velas said quickly. We can negotiate boundaries, integrate them. They do not integrate, Threxiel interrupted. They adapt. They absorb. They become. Karetha's eyes narrowed slightly. And you believe destruction will prevent that? I believe preemption ensures stability, Threxiel said. The colony was a message. Kareth inclined his head. Yes. It was. A pause. And they will answer it. Threxiel rose, the movement drawing every eye. Enough. The word carried authority that brooked no challenge. The Concord does not yield to speculation, he said. We act to preserve order. The humans will adjust, or they will be contained. Velas opened his mouth, then closed it again. Others remained silent, unwilling to oppose the arbiter directly. Kareth did not sit. Containment will fail, he said quietly. Threxiel's gaze sharpened. You presume much. I remember, Kareth replied. For a moment, something unspoken passed between them, history perhaps, or regret. Then it was gone. The matter is decided, Threxiel said. Operations will continue. Expansion must be curtailed. A series of lights illuminated along the council ring, each representing a vote. One by one, they activated. Approval. Hesitation. Reluctant consent. The result was clear. Kareth closed his eyes briefly, then lowered himself back onto his platform. You have chosen, he said. Threxiel inclined his head. We have. Karetha's gaze returned to the projection, now restored to its calm, rotating form. Then you have already lost. No one responded. The chamber dimmed as the session concluded, the projection fading to darkness. The colony had no name anymore. Only coordinates. Ash drifted across the broken landscape, carried by a thin, restless wind. Structures that had once housed families now lay collapsed, their frames twisted, their surfaces scorched to dull black. The sky, once clear, remained clouded by particulate haze, dimming the light of the distant star. Commander Elias Vaughn stood at the edge of a shallow trench. He did not move. Rows of markers extended in precise lines, each one identical, each one bearing a designation instead of a name. Identification had been difficult. The strike had been thorough. Behind him, a small team worked in silence, their movements efficient, practiced. They spoke only when necessary, voices low, measured. Energy signatures confirmed, one of them said. Matches Concord-class weaponry. High probability origin, Council-aligned fleets. Vaughn did not turn. Probability? He asked. 93%. He considered that. Not enough, he said. The technician hesitated. Commander. Not enough, Vaughn repeated. The wind shifted, carrying a faint scent of burnt metal and something else, something organic that lingered despite the passing of days. A second officer approached, holding a data slate. Surveillance logs recovered from orbital debris. Partial, but intact enough to reconstruct the attack sequence. Timeline, Vaughn said. 4 minutes, the officer replied. From first strike to total system failure. Vaughn nodded once. Efficient. Deliberate. Final. He stepped forward, descending into the trench. The markers stretched ahead, uniform, impersonal. He stopped at the first one, looking down. Designation only. No names. No stories. Just numbers. He crouched, brushing ash from the surface with a gloved hand. The motion was slow, almost careful. They thought it would be quick, the officer said quietly behind him. No warning. No chance to respond. Vaughn rose. They wanted it to be quick, he said. He turned then, his gaze sweeping across the ruins, the broken horizon, the silent rose. Who signed the order? He asked. The technician hesitated. We don't have confirmation. Then find it. We will, the officer said. But it will take time. Vaughn met his eyes. We have time, he said. The officer held his gaze for a moment, then nodded. Yes, Commander. Vaughn looked back at the trench. 3 million lives. Erased in 4 minutes. The wind moved again, stirring the ash into faint spirals that dissipated almost as quickly as they formed. They think we'll react? The technician said. Strike back. Make a statement. Vaughn shook his head. No, he said. He turned away from the graves, his expression unchanged, his voice steady. We don't react. He began walking toward the waiting transport, his steps measured, unhurried. We remember, he said. The wind carried his words across the silent field. And then we answer. The silence began without announcement. Trade lanes that had pulsed with human traffic dimmed, then emptied. Cargo manifests vanished from shared networks. Civilian transmissions reduced to routine pings, stripped of personality. Even diplomatic channels, once cluttered with cautious exchanges and veiled negotiations, fell quiet. To most of the Concord, it looked like withdrawal. To those who paid closer attention, it felt like something else. Commander Elias Vaughn stood alone in the observation chamber of the Resolute. Beyond the reinforced viewport, a dense field of stars stretched across the void, sharp and unmoving. The ship drifted at the edge of human-controlled space, engines dormant, systems running on minimal output. Invisible. Behind him, a cluster of holodisplays rotated slowly, each layer feeding him information, intercepted signals, fleet positioning, reconstructed attack logs. Data flowed in clean, ordered streams. No noise. No speculation. Only facts. Report, Barnes said without turning. Lieutenant Mara Ilian stepped forward, her posture precise, her voice steady. Outer colonies have completed blackout protocols. Civilian movement is restricted to internal networks. No external broadcasts beyond automated beacons. Compliance? Total, she said. No leaks. Vaughn nodded once. Silence was not absence. It was control. Fleet status? He asked. A new display unfolded, revealing a scatter of human vessels across multiple systems. Then, one by one, the icons shifted, converging, aligning along routes invisible to anyone without access to their encryption. Redeployment continues under passive signatures, Mara said. No detectable emissions. To external sensors, we're gone. Good, Vaughn replied. He studied the pattern, tracing the lines of movement. Not random. Not reactive. Positioning. A second officer approached, carrying a slim data core. Recovered surveillance from the colony strike. We've reconstructed 98% of the attack sequence. Vaughn extended his hand. The core clicked into place, and the chamber dimmed. The projection unfolded in silence. A human colony, alive and functioning. Agricultural grids, habitation clusters, orbital relays. Then, without warning, a flash, no preamble, no communication. Orbital strikes. Precise. Systematic. Every defensive node neutralized in the first 10 seconds. Power grids collapsed. Communication severed. Atmospheric processors targeted last. 4 minutes. Total erasure. The recording ended. Mara spoke carefully. Weapon signatures matched Concord standard heavy cruisers. Modified targeting algorithms, but the core design is familiar, Vaughn finished. Yes, Commander. He disengaged the projection. Origin, he said. We're narrowing it down, the officer replied. The fleet masked its approach through neutral zones. They used 3 different vector paths to obscure the launch point. Not enough, Vaughn said. The officer hesitated. We'll get it. You will, Vaughn replied. He turned back to the viewport, watching the distant stars. They had not hidden well enough. No one ever did. Far beyond human space, the Concord continued its routine. Cargo convoys moved under escort. Patrol fleets maintained their routes. Communication hubs relayed orders with mechanical precision. On the surface, nothing had changed. But beneath that surface, small fractures began to form. A listening station at the edge of Kethari territory missed a scheduled check-in. Then another. A relay node failed to transmit updated navigation data. Individually, the anomalies were insignificant. Systems failed. Stations lost power. It happened. But the pattern was wrong. Ambassador Velas studied the reports in silence, his elongated fingers tracing the sequence of failures. The timing was too clean. The gaps too precise. Correlation? He asked. His aide hesitated. Minimal, Ambassador. The systems are spread across different sectors. No shared infrastructure. Velas leaned back, his gaze distant. No, he said quietly. Not infrastructure. The aide frowned. Then what? Velas did not answer. He was thinking of the silence. Back in the Concord chamber, High Arbiter Threxio regarded the same reports with far less concern. Routine degradation, he said, dismissing the data with a flick of his hand. Peripheral systems lack proper maintenance. Allocate resources if necessary. A council member shifted uneasily. The failures are clustered. Coincidence? Threxio replied. They began shortly after the human withdrawal. Threxio's expression hardened slightly. And you believe that is significant? I believe it is unusual. Unusual does not equate to dangerous, Threxio said. Humans have retreated into isolation. Their economy is contracting. Their influence diminishing. Elder Kareth, seated at the edge of the chamber, watched without interruption. They are not retreating, he said. Threxio did not look at him. You persist in this narrative. I persist in observation, Kareth replied. They have not protested. They have not accused. They have not responded. And you find that troubling, Threxio said. Yes, Kareth answered. A pause. Why? Threxio asked, finally turning. Kareth met his gaze. Because humans do not ignore injury. The chamber remained still. They record it, Kareth continued. They examine it. They assign responsibility. And then? Threxio said. They act, Kareth replied. Then where is the action? Threxio asked. Where is the retaliation you predict? Karetha's voice did not change. It has already begun. On the Resolute, Vaughn reviewed a different kind of report. Not destruction. Access. Encrypted Concord networks, once considered secure, now displayed subtle inconsistencies. Delayed responses. Minor discrepancies in routing. Tiny fractures in systems designed to be flawless. No alarms triggered. No defenses activated. Because nothing obvious had happened. Entry points established, Mara said. We're inside their secondary networks. Primary systems are still isolated, but we're mapping them. Undetected? Vaughn asked. Completely, she replied. He nodded. Maintain passive observation, he said. No disruption. Mara hesitated. We could cripple their communications now. We could, Vaughn agreed. Then why wait? He turned, meeting her eyes. Because we don't strike until we understand everything, he said. Every system. Every response. Every contingency. Mara held his gaze, then inclined her head. Understood. Vaughn returned his attention to the displays. Data flowed. Patterns emerged. Names appeared. Command chains. Authorization codes. Every decision left a trace. All it took was time. At the far edge of Concord space, a patrol fleet altered course to investigate a silent relay. They arrived to find nothing. No debris. No damage. Just an empty station, systems offline, logs erased. Scan for cloaked vessels, the commander ordered. Negative, came the reply. No residual signatures. The commander frowned. Then what happened here? No one answered. Because there was nothing to see. Back on Earth, deep beneath layers of reinforced structure, a single chamber remained active. Rows of displays lined the walls, each one tracking a different thread of information. At the center, a circular table projected a living map of the galaxy, lines of light connecting systems, routes, and targets. Operation Final Ledger. Every hostile act against humanity. Every responsible entity. Every supporting system. Logged. Verified. Confirmed. Vaughn stood at the edge of the projection, his hands clasped behind his back. Status, he said. A voice responded from the shadows. 71% of primary actors identified. Secondary networks mapped. Command hierarchy partially reconstructed. Continue, Vaughn said. Yes, Commander. The projection shifted, highlighting new nodes, new connections. A web. Not random. Not chaotic. Structured. Deliberate. Timeline? Vaughn asked. 2 weeks for full confirmation. Vaughn considered that. Acceptable, he said. He looked at the glowing network, at the points of light that represented decisions, actions, consequences. They believe we've withdrawn, Mara said quietly beside him. Vaughn did not look away. Let them, he said. A new alert appeared on the display. Another Concord station had gone silent. No signal. No trace. Vaughn watched the update without reaction. They'll notice eventually, Mara said. Yes, Vaughn replied. Then what? He turned, his expression calm, his voice steady. Then they'll understand, he said. Understand what? Vaughn looked back at the map, at the growing pattern, at the lines that would soon converge. That we were never gone, he said. The room fell silent again, filled only with the quiet hum of systems and the steady expansion of a plan already in motion. Outside, the galaxy continued as it always had, unaware that something had already begun to move beneath its surface. Unseen. Unheard. Unavoidable. The first system fell without a sound. No alarms. No warning. No visible enemy. The Caro's defense grid had stood for 2 centuries, its layered shields and orbital cannons forming a barrier no fleet had ever breached. It guarded a vital junction, a convergence of trade routes and military corridors. Its command station monitored every signal within range, every fluctuation in spacetime, every unauthorized jump. At precisely 3:14 station time, it went blind. Screens flickered. Targeting arrays reset. Communication links severed themselves from the network as if instructed. Automated systems attempted to reinitialize, but each command returned corrupted, rewritten mid-execution. System override detected, an operator shouted. Origin unknown. His voice cut off as the display before him went black. Across the station, consoles died in sequence. Power remained. Life support held. But every function tied to defense, tracking, weapons, communication ceased. The station did not explode. It simply stopped existing as a threat. 17 seconds later, the first human ship appeared. It did not jump in with the violent distortion of standard travel. It emerged quietly, precisely, like a shadow stepping into light. Then another. And another. A fleet, arranged in perfect formation, engines emitting only the faintest trace of energy. No signals were sent. No demands issued. Commander Elias Vaughn watched from the bridge of the Resolute as the silent station drifted before them, inert, exposed. Confirmed system lock, he said. Confirmed, Mara replied. All defense layers neutralized. No external communication. Civilian population? None. Military installation only. Vaughn nodded once. Proceed. The fleet moved as one. Targeting solutions executed instantly, each strike calculated, measured. Rail cannons fired with surgical precision, breaching critical nodes. Missile clusters followed, eliminating backup systems before they could engage. There was no excess force, no wasted motion. Within 2 minutes, the Caro's defense grid was reduced to debris. No survivors. No transmissions. Only silence. Log entry, Vaughn said. Mara's voice was steady. Target Caros. Status neutralized. Responsible authority, Concord Military Command, Sector 3. Confirmed, Vaughn replied. The entry was recorded. One line in a ledger that was far from complete. The collapse spread. Relay stations failed across multiple sectors, each one losing function before any distress signal could be sent. Patrol fleets responded, arriving at coordinates only to find emptiness, systems stripped of capability, reduced to drifting metal. They're not attacking, a Concord officer said during an emergency briefing. They're disabling. Then why the destruction? Another demanded. To prevent recovery, came the answer. The distinction did nothing to ease the tension. In the Concord chamber, the illusion of control fractured. Reports flooded in, each one more severe than the last. Entire defense networks offline. Fleets missing. Communication delays spreading like a contagion. High Arbiter Threxiel stood at the center, his composure intact but strained. Reinforce primary systems, he ordered. Mobilize all available fleets. Establish defensive perimeters around core worlds. A commander appeared via holographic projection, his image flickering with interference. We cannot establish perimeters. Our navigation systems are compromised. Coordinates shift during execution. We're flying blind. Then revert to manual control, Threxiel said. We have, the commander replied. They anticipated it. A pause. How? Threxiel demanded. The commander hesitated. They know our protocols. Our response patterns. Every contingency we deploy, they counter before we execute. The connection cut. Murmurs filled the chamber. This is coordinated, Velas said, his voice tight. This is not retaliation. This is dismantling. Threxiel turned sharply. Then we adapt. We cannot adapt fast enough, Velas replied. They're operating ahead of us. Elder Kareth rose slowly. I warned you, he said. Threxiel's gaze snapped toward him. You warned of retaliation, not this. I warned of understanding, Kareth corrected. They learned from us. From every conflict. Every strategy. They are still limited, Threxiel insisted. They cannot sustain this level of operation across multiple sectors. Kareth met his eyes. They do not need to sustain it, he said. Only complete it. The Concord launched its counterattack within the hour. 3 fleets converged on a human-controlled system, their orders clear: engage, overwhelm, destroy. They arrived to find nothing. No ships. No installations. Empty space. Scan for cloaked vessels, the fleet commander ordered. Negative, came the response. No signatures. Maintain formation, the commander said. Prepare for. The first explosion tore through the lead ship. It came from within. A cascade failure triggered across the fleet, systems turning against themselves. Targeting arrays misidentified Allied vessels as hostile. Defensive turrets engaged automatically, firing into friendly lines. Engines overloaded, detonating in controlled bursts that spread from ship to ship. Shut down systems, the commander shouted. Unable to comply. Command access denied. The fleet collapsed in under 3 minutes. No external force was visible. Only the aftermath. On the Resolute, Vaughn observed the engagement through a filtered feed. Internal disruption successful, Mara reported. They attempted manual override. We anticipated the sequence. Casualties? Vaughn asked. Total loss, she said. Vaughn watched the data scroll past. Log entry, he said. Target, Concord Fleet Group 7. Status, neutralized. Responsible authority, Concord High Command. Confirmed. Another line. Another balance adjusted. Across the galaxy, a transmission appeared. It did not originate from a ship. It did not route through established networks. It simply existed, overriding every channel simultaneously. Every screen displayed the same image. Commander Elias Vaughn. He stood against a dark backdrop, his uniform unadorned, his expression unchanged. "We have identified the source of the colony attack," he said. His voice carried without distortion, without delay. "Authorization was granted by the Galactic Concord Council. Execution was carried out by Concord Military Command." Data followed, records, signatures, timestamps. Proof, irrefutable and complete. This action resulted in the destruction of a civilian population. Vaughn continued. 3 million lives. No warning. No justification. The transmission did not pause. "This is not war," he said. "This is correction." The image shifted, displaying a network of highlighted systems, military installations, command centers, strategic assets. "Every responsible entity has been identified," Vaughn said. "Every supporting structure will be addressed." A moment of silence. "We do not target civilians," he said. "We do not escalate beyond necessity." His gaze held steady. "But we do not pardon." The transmission ended. In the Concord chamber, no one spoke. The evidence hung in the air, undeniable. Threxiel stood motionless, his expression unreadable. "They've exposed everything," Bellis said quietly. "They've justified themselves," another added. "They've condemned us," a third whispered. Kareth looked at the projection, now dark, the chamber illuminated only by dim ambient light. "They have judged you," he said. Threxiel's hands tightened at his sides. "We can still negotiate." Kareth shook his head. "You mistake them," he said. Threxiel turned, his voice sharp. "Then tell me, what do they want?" Kareth met his gaze. "Completion," he said. In deep space, beyond the reach of Concord sensors, human fleets moved. Not in haste. Not in anger. But with purpose. Each vector calculated. Each target confirmed. Each action aligned with a plan that had begun long before the first shot was fired. On the bridge of the Resolute, Vaughn watched the final phase initiate. "Primary targets within range," Mara said. "Awaiting command." Vaughn considered the data, the network, the remaining nodes. "Proceed," he said. The order carried across the fleet, quiet and absolute. Engines ignited. Coordinates locked. The next wave began. Far away, in the heart of Concord territory, High Arbiter Threxiel finally understood. Not fully. But enough. "They knew," he said, his voice low. No one responded. "They knew everything," he continued. "Before we moved. Before we acted." Kareth inclined his head slightly. "Yes," he said. Threxiel looked at the empty projection, at the space where certainty had once existed. "We created this," he said. Kareth did not disagree. "You revealed yourselves," he said. The chamber remained silent. And for the first time, the Concord understood that the outcome had already been decided. They had not started a war. They had triggered a conclusion. The Concord no longer functioned as a single entity. It fractured. Systems once bound by centralized command now operated in isolation, their communication grids severed or compromised. Fleets scattered, some retreating to defend their home sectors, others attempting regrouping maneuvers that never completed. Orders conflicted. Signals arrived too late, altered, or not at all. Panic did not spread loudly. It settled quietly, replacing certainty with doubt. For the first time in its history, the Concord reacted instead of dictated. High Arbiter Threxiel stood alone in the central chamber. The vast projection behind him remained dark, The usual image of controlled space replaced by intermittent flickers of disrupted data. Entire sectors appeared and vanished, their status unknown. The silence within the chamber was heavier now, stripped of the confidence that had once filled it. "Status," he said. The response came from a subordinate positioned at the edge of the hall. 70% of outer defense systems are offline. Core world shields remain active, but their stability is uncertain. Fleets? Scattered. We've lost contact with 8 primary groups. Survivors are regrouping near central sectors. Threxiel absorbed the information without outward reaction. And the humans? A pause. They are advancing, the subordinate said. Deliberately. They avoid civilian zones. Only military and command infrastructure are targeted. Threxiel's gaze sharpened slightly. Precision, he said. Yes. Not chaos. Not vengeance. Control. The realization did not comfort him. Prepare a transmission, he said. Open all channels. The subordinate hesitated. To negotiate? To end this, Threxiel replied. The signal reached human space without interference. It was expected. Commander Elias Vaughn stood in the command chamber, the projection of Concord territory shifting before him as final operations concluded. Remaining targets flickered in diminishing numbers, each one marked, each one accounted for. Mara glanced at him. Incoming transmission. Concord origin. Vaughn did not turn. Display, he said. Threxiel appeared, his form steady, his voice controlled. Commander Vaughn, he began. This conflict has reached a point of mutual destruction. We propose immediate cessation of hostilities. Terms can be discussed. No, Vaughn said. The interruption was quiet, but absolute. Threxiel paused, recalibrating. You have demonstrated your capability. There is no need for further escalation. Vaughn faced the projection. This was not escalation, he said. This was response. Threxiel's expression hardened. Then consider it complete. You have made your point. Vaughn studied him for a moment. You believe this was about demonstration, he said. What else could it be? Threxiel asked. Vaughn's voice did not change. Correction. The word settled between them. Threxiel drew a slow breath. Then the correction has been made. The systems responsible are neutralized. There is nothing left to gain. There is accountability, Vaughn replied. We are prepared to offer reparations, Threxiel said. Compensation. Territory. Recognition of sovereignty. Vaughn's gaze remained steady. You offered none of those before, he said. A flicker of tension crossed Threxiel's features. Circumstances have changed. Yes, Vaughn said. They have. Silence stretched. End this, Threxiel said finally. There is no advantage in continuing. Vaughn considered the statement, then shook his head. You still don't understand, he said. Then explain it to me, Threxiel demanded. Vaughn's voice remained calm. You destroyed a civilian population without warning, he said. You authorized it. You executed it. You concealed it. Threxiel did not respond. You assumed we would react, Vaughn continued. That we would strike without thought. That we would expose ourselves. He took a step closer to the projection. You were wrong. The chamber behind Threxiel remained silent. We did not act, Vaughn said. We learned. Threxiel's posture stiffened. And now? He asked. Now we finish, Vaughn replied. The transmission ended. The final phase began without announcement. Remaining Concord command centers lost synchronization, their internal systems overridden in sequence. Defensive protocols failed before activation. Communication hubs collapsed, isolating leadership from any coordinated response. Human fleets moved in precise formations, each arrival timed to the exact second. No warnings were issued. No negotiations offered. Targets were eliminated. Not indiscriminately. Not excessively. Exactly as required. Elder Kareth stood at the edge of the chamber as the last reports arrived. He did not intervene. He had already spoken. Primary command structures are offline, a council member said, his voice strained. We have no centralized authority remaining. Another spoke, quieter. This is the end. Kareth closed his eyes briefly. Yes, he said. Threxiel remained standing at the center, his composure intact but hollow. There must be something left to negotiate, he said. Kareth looked at him. You had that opportunity, he said. We did what was necessary, Threxiel replied, though the conviction was gone. No, Kareth said. You did what was convenient. Threxiel turned sharply. And they are justified? Karetha's gaze did not waver. They are consistent, he said. The distinction hung in the air. The final meeting occurred not in the grand chamber, but in a smaller, isolated space. A neutral environment. No displays. No symbols. No authority. Commander Elias Vaughn entered without escort. Threxiel stood opposite him, alone. For a moment neither spoke. You have dismantled the Concord, Threxiel said. Vaughn regarded him. No, he replied. You did. Threxiel exhaled slowly. Then this is the end. For you, Vaughn said. The words carried no emphasis. Only fact. Threxiel's gaze sharpened. And the rest? Those who were not involved will remain, Vaughn said. Those who were will be held accountable. You will judge us? Threxiel asked. We already have, Vaughn replied. Silence followed. You could have destroyed everything, Threxiel said. You had the capability. Yes, Vaughn said. Then why didn't you? Vaughn held his gaze. Because this was not about destruction, he said. It was about certainty. Threxiel's posture faltered, just slightly. And now you have it. Yes. Another pause. Then what happens to me? Threxiel asked. Vaughn did not look away. You face the consequences of your decisions, he said. No anger. No satisfaction. Only conclusion. Time passed. The galaxy adjusted. Without the Concord's centralized authority, systems reorganized, forming new alliances, new structures. Trade resumed cautiously. Communication networks were rebuilt, though never with the same assumption of security. Humanity did not expand aggressively. It did not need to. Its presence was understood, respected, feared. Not for its strength alone, but for its memory. Elder Kareth recorded the events in silence. He stood once more before a projection of Earth, its surface calm, unchanged by the conflict that had reshaped the stars around it. They warned them, he said quietly, his voice carrying only within the chamber. They chose not to listen. He paused, considering the record before him. Humans are not the most powerful species, he continued, nor the most advanced. His gaze remained fixed on the blue sphere. But they are the most persistent. The projection rotated slowly, light glinting off its surface. They do not forget, Kareth said. They do not forgive threats to their existence. He inclined his head slightly. They endure, he finished. On the observation deck of the Resolute, Vaughn stood alone. Earth filled the viewport, distant yet clear, a constant among variables. Mara approached quietly, stopping beside him. It's over, she said. Vaughn watched the planet in silence. For now, he replied. She studied his expression. Do you think they understand? Vaughn considered the question. They will remember, he said. Mara nodded. That's enough, she said. Vaughn did not answer. He remained still, his gaze fixed on the world they had preserved. Behind him, systems continued to operate, fleets continued to move, and records continued to be written. Not as warnings, as reminders. Because humanity did not rely on fear. It relied on certainty. And once that certainty was established, it did not change. Not with time. Not with distance. Not with regret. Humans could forgive. But only when survival was never at risk. For everything else, there was memory. And memory did not pardon.